video is designed to provide you with simplistic drawings representing the first 2 weeks of embryological development. Watch it once, but then see if you can recreate the drawings on your own without the aid of this video. Reference the video when necessary, but remember the end goal is for you to be able to do it on your own. So grab your colored pencils and let the drawing begin. We start with the zygote after a single mitotic division. Remember that it is surrounded by a hard shell called the zona pellucida. These two parent cells continually divide, with each of their child cells being smaller than the original so that all the cells can fit inside the zona pellucida. Once the zygote reaches about 16 cells, it changes its name to a morula. Now we need to turn the morula into a blastocyst. So how does that happen? The cells of the morula begin to differentiate into two different masses. One group of cells begins to surround themselves along the periphery, and they are called the outer cell mass, or trophoblast, while the other cells group themselves into a bundle at one end, and they are referred to as the inner cell mass, or the embryoblast. Also note that during this process, a cavity develops, referred to as the blastocele. The inner cell mass is what gives rise to the embryo itself, while the outer cell mass contributes to the formation of supporting tissues. It is important to realize that with blastocyst formation, the stem cells transition from being totipotent to pluripotent, as cells of the trophoblast cannot contribute to the embryo formation, while cells of the embryoblast can no longer contribute to formation of the placenta. By the end of week 1, the blastocyst has hatched from its zona pellucida, so that implantation can now occur. In order for implantation to occur, the cells of the trophoblast begin to differentiate into two different layers. The cytotrophoblastic cells are what line the blastocyst cavity, while the outer invasive layer is the syncytiotrophoblast. This line represents the uterine wall, so that you can see that a little bit of implantation has occurred. At the same time that this is happening, the cells of the embryoblast begin to reorganize themselves as well, as they separate into two layers, the epiblast and the hypoblast. A portion of the epiblast cells are what is going to eventually differentiate into the embryo. As the blastocyst transitions into week 2, the syncytiotrophoblast cells quickly expand to promote further implantation. Recall that the cells of the syncytiotrophoblast merge, which is why I am not drawing cell borders here. We can draw in the uterine wall as being right here. The epiblast has now formed an amniotic cavity, while the hypoblast has formed the primary yolk sac. Recall that the yolk sac gives rise to an additional population of cells, the extraembryonic mesoderm. Fast forward a few days to see what happens to the extraembryonic mesoderm. But first, I'm drawing in the green circles here to represent that the syncytiotrophoblastic cells and the cytotrophoblastic cells are still continuing their invasion into the endometrium to set up the initiation of uteroplacental circulation. However, it will take too long to draw, and let's be honest, I'm not that good of a drawer, so I'm not focusing on it. But do realize that there are additional processes going on in relation to the supportive structures. Here's the extraembryonic mesoderm expanding to surround the yolk sac and amniotic cavity. It too begins to develop its own cavity, the chorionic cavity. Eventually, the chorionic cavity is going to expand to completely surround the amniotic cavity and yolk sac, with exception to this area where it attaches to the cytotrophoblast, called the connecting or body stalk. By about week 9, the amniotic sac will have expanded to occupy the majority of the volume of the chorionic cavity. Thus, the chorionic cavity is a transient feature that is eventually replaced by the amniotic sac. That takes us to the end of week 2.